Hello and welcome to GuyLogicGaming. My name is Temco and this is All Walls Must Fall, the first title by developer inbetweengames over on Steam Early Access raised through their Kickstarter campaign. And what the game really is a turn-based tactics game where you have one character and you go into a map to complete an objective, and you can do so in a multitude of ways with a multitude of objectives that then allow you to get rewards, pacifist or aggressive, with separate leaderboards for both, which is fairly cool. Now, technically, if we head into options, the game does things quite decently with a display FPS setting, and the game runs at over 100 FPS on my machine at all times. Windowed, full screen and full screen windowed, a couple of presets including custom, which is always good. Audio settings has master music SFX volume, which is always good. It also has maximum music loops, which is fairly interesting, as it allows for some expansion of the game's soundtracks, which, while the game says is a massively important focus, really isn't that great. Gameplay wise, you have tutorials you can enable or disable. I've disabled them for this video, but they are really good, so do enable them when you're playing. Decision timers makes the game a little bit more challenging and a little more adrenaline filled, as while you're waiting to decide your next course of action, even if you're not in active combat, your resource timer ticks down, and when it reaches 0, you lose the match, and the lower your resource timer is at the end of a level, the lower your reward. And then you have permadeath as well. Controls wise, you have fully rebindable keys, which is fairly good, and then advanced options have you do a variety of different advanced gameplay settings in terms of video options, VSync, and the like. Rewards, well, if you have a Kickstarter code, you can do it that way. Otherwise, you can ignore that tab. Overall, not too bad. Collectibles have a bunch of stuff you can collect. Most of these are ID cards for the Kickstarter campaign that people that backed the game previously can look back on, and you can collect these in the game by looting crates and the like. That all said, the game has a daily challenge where you perform a specific challenge that is really hard, and you can check the global, pacifist, and as well as violent leader boards. Pretty straightforward. It's pretty good and it's pretty cool, and these challenges always have a certain set of upgrades. I'll get to that in a bit. What I'm going to do is go into a new campaign and show you the first couple of missions and talk about the gameplay now, because technically this is a good product. If this game was coming out of early access in terms of its technical competence, I would recommend it wholeheartedly. But when we get to gameplay, there are a couple of caveats I would like you to keep in mind. So let's go ahead and dive into All Walls Must Fall. So diving into gameplay, you can see the controls are fairly straightforward. Left mouse to move, interact or shoot, right mouse to move, interact, shoot, WSD to move the camera, Q need to rotate it, and then 5 hotkeys for a variety of different activities. And these activities are the core of the game, because it's all about time travel and messing about with how things interact with one another to get your objective done. Now, your objective is generally the same thing in a different jacket. Go inside this club, either the front door or the back door, and find a crate, find a person, find something and interact with that, and then move back out. On the rare occasion you have to interact with multiple things, same idea, you just have to find them in a procedurally generated room. The two main components of the game though are the interaction system and the combat system. And both of them are pretty good, but they don't mesh well together in my opinion. Now, let's start with the interaction system, because I feel this is the way to play the game as a stealth tactics title, because that is truly the vibe I'm getting from this game. From top to bottom, all the ideas of combat and interaction for All Walls Must Fall is interaction, and then going from there, you have a fallback into combat mechanics if you are interested in that sort of thing. Sadly, there's issues with that. Let's dive into the first segment. Interaction in the dialogue system consists out of 3 optional meters. One is aggressiveness, one is romance, and one is respect. And all of these boil down to how you interact with the target you're talking to. So depending on the way they react, you can reply back with saying, well, this one's flirty on me because of the emoticon next to his face, so I can give him a flirty one back. That didn't work well. Now I have to figure out what to do so I can make something cooler. And going from that, I can see the meters on the left side move top to bottom. And if I hit 100 on either 3 of them in the positive, I get a positive response, or else I get a negative response. This seems to be fairly simple. And going by the language of the text, you can generally infer what is going on. There's 2 segments here though that make this a little bit fiddly and a little bit annoying. First, there is the rollback option, where you can turn back time in trade for your turn points, which are the ones sticking down in the bottom right of the screen. Now, if you turn back time, you still have the same dialogue options, which means you can just retry things time and time again. And if you have the upgrades, all the suspense and all the challenge of this dialogue system that you have to think ahead about how to do the interaction and think about names of people and think about who you met in the alley and who you met up front and whether or not they have an interaction relationship. All this additional depth is removed because you just click a button. If it's not a reaction you wanted, you turn back time. And because the dialogue system even freezes your tick down rate so you can at your leisure read and evaluate the options you have available, it further reinforces the idea that this needs to be controlled. You need to take your time on this, you need to think ahead, and then the game sort of gives you an option to continually retry without any additional negatives. The game's core idea obviously is the time loop focus thing where you turn back time and you take back turns and you redo things. There's even combat areas where you need to do that for the best possible result if you want to get a higher score. But when combined with the interaction system, it doesn't work great because all it does is remove challenge and depth of the system. Not the best. But if you just take the interaction system as it is and you sort of challenge yourself not to interact with it using the time loop mechanics, then it becomes a very interesting way of performing activities, because what you can do then is try to figure out if you can flirt with someone, try to figure out if you can get them to be scared of you based on the responses you have available and based on the opening lines they set out for you. And from there you can unlock objectives, you can unlock rooms, you can get people to back up without needing to kill them, and so on and so forth. Overall, all of this is a fairly cool idea, and especially with the procedural generation of the system, you sometimes need to go through multiple rooms or multiple people to get to a specific point you need to get to. And at that point, getting persuaded and getting figured out what you need to talk about is fairly damn good. So no complaints in the system itself, but combining it with a core gameplay loop, which is turn back time, redo things, turn back time, try something else out, turn back time. Oh, look at that, the enemy suddenly has a bullet hole in the back of their head while you were turning back time. That's where the issues come in for the interaction system. For the combat system though, that is where all the fun is about. And that is also really, really fun. In combat, you have a turn-based system and each action takes an amount of points. And if you shoot a gun, that takes 1 point or 2 points or 3 points. And based on that, you have interaction. You can move to the side and dodge a bullet. You can even dash to the side and dodge a bullet. And you can even go around corners or break down walls if you have a high enough caliber rifle or shotgun. You can hack terminals to get drones to assist you with combat. You can even preempt combat. If you see an opponent around the corner, you can preempt combat by drawing your gun and just shooting him in the head before he even notices you, if you feel that is a good idea. All in all, the combat system is really, really good. It allows for tactical thinking. It allows for you to take a step back, evaluate what's going on, and see the best course of action as you progress through the level and as you progress through the interactions. On top of that, because of the way the game sort of tries to put a timer on you, just leisurely exploring everything and going about your merry way step by step by step, what you can also have is that new enemies spawn in, and more enemies spawn in the longer you take to complete the mission. So this combination of leisurely sitting back, this tactical turn-based approach to things, coupled with this more adrenaline-filled excitement that you have to go through and get through every option and every room as fast as you can to make sure that enemies don't spawn in behind you, don't lock you out of areas with like half a dozen enemies you have to kill, is a sort of cool duality that the game executes quite well. Couple that with a decently good upgrade system that lets you upgrade a variety of things during a campaign, and you're really set for an interesting game. So why did I then say at the start of the game that there are a couple of caveats in regards to this game that sort of make me hesitant to recommend it? Well, the answer to that boils down to a duality of the system, the interaction and combat system, the pacifist approach versus the aggressive approach. And yes, the game has leaderboards for both of them, so you could theoretically do one and the other, but the reality is, if you just want to complete the game, get a challenge done, complete a hard mission, there is never a singular reason to go for the pacifist mode, ever. In fact, the game actively deters you from doing so in many scenarios and situations. You can switch weapons on the fly without any requirements of cost. If you have a gun loaded, you can just switch to a different gun when you're out of bullets and start firing again. Upgrades to weapon capabilities such as shotguns, rifles, allow you to one-shot even higher end enemies from across the room, and they won't have a chance to react. In fact, you basically always have the first turn. There is no enemies that can take drop on you. There is nothing like that at all, which in essence makes the combat trivial, simplistic, and really makes it lose out on all of its depth, because honestly, through about 5 runs of the campaign, I never felt the need to buy a higher caliber rifle than my regular pistol and just upgrade that to high heaven, get 2 pistols, or 3 pistols even, upgrade them to tier 3, so I have a bunch of damage, then get the explosive tip shells upgrade, and bada bing, I can shoot any enemy down in 1 or 2 hits, including higher end enemies such as Nemesis and Phantoms that can warp around the room. And while these other enemies necessitate different tactics in terms of gameplay, in terms of how you approach combat, that only lasts as long until you can figure out how to upgrade your weapon, and then you face smash them and ignore them completely because you can 2-shot them anyway. This, I feel, is the biggest problem for All Walls Must Fall. It is the issue that even though you have the option to go passive, it's not worth it, and when you have the option to go in combat, there is no negative to doing so. You're not going to lose out on extra points, you're not going to lose out on mission objectives, and oftentimes when you are trying to do the pacifist route in a room with multiple opponents, if you miss one, or even if 2 rooms down someone else engages you in a mission, all of those are still gonna move in even with the silencer and kill you, or at least attempt to kill you, because as I mentioned, once you have a good spot, getting killed is nigh on impossible. And you see that in this video. Multiple enemies are going to attack me from multiple sides, and I may take 1 point of damage instead of getting severely shot up because there's multiple enemies attacking me. And this doesn't change in later missions that are hard or very hard. You're still very much overpowered compared to your opponents, especially if you spend a little bit of time gathering that good old cash for those upgrades. Now the daily challenges are a different beast, obviously, because those are restricted preset modes with a set of upgrades and a set of options already pre-thought out. So they are designed to be challenging. But the campaign missions, which is the meat of the game, though procedurally generated, do feel very easy and miss out on a lot of the combat depth you would have had when you had to play it tactically and think it through like you would expect from this game, and like all the systems of this game seem to be trying to achieve, but just don't hit the mark. So this is my main issue with All Walls Must Fall. All the components of this game seem to be great. Every update to the game expands on these ideas in a significantly impressive manner. The addition of backdoors is a new update. The addition of nemesises that are immune to your time warping powers, but that can then be abused against them because there's time warping powers that affect you, but they don't affect them. So if you then use a time warp power on yourself and warp backwards in time, they're still not affected. But if you shoot them and you get shot and you warp back time so you're no longer shot, they're still shot. So there's many different layers of tactics you can apply to, because obviously other enemies that you might also have shot are then also not shot. Yeah, it gets confusing really fast when you're messing around with temporal gameplay, but the game never allows you to really benefit from that because, well, it's shit easy. All depth is lost. All notions of combat and tactics sort of fly out the window when you have a fisty glove that can break down a wall 5 tiles wide. And when you have it upgraded to that point, you can just walk up behind an opponent's wall, smashing it through the side door, get to the main room without needing to do any of the other tactical thinking or progress or anything of that in the rest of the map, and walk right out again to your car. And if you're really pushing it, you can dash as well, lose out on a couple of points, but really if you're that fast, it's not going to matter. So all in all Walls Must Fall has a cool idea of a concept, and yet it somehow fails the execution, not in mechanics, not in ideas, but in simple gameplay balancing. That said, there's a couple of other things here to bring with you. First is the visual style. Now, while I don't love this visual style, it's unique, and it definitely fits with the ideas of the title. That said, the camera is atrocious most of the time, and I do truly hope the developers spend some serious time resolving the camera issues. Even with the ability to turn around the map camera, to zoom in and out, to pan all across the map independent of my character, I still often struggle to see what the hell was going on where during the map, because the way the rendering works. You'll see it in this video a couple of times where a camera would try to zoom in and suddenly a wall would appear even though my character was standing right there in front of me, obstructing my view. Or objectives would be marked on the map with a line going straight to the other direction than where the objective is. Or you'd have a close-up of a combat scene or interaction, and then it would pan the camera around so you're staring at a wall, listening to nice little gunshots. All in all, the camera, outside of the very easy combat, is the biggest annoyance. And that is a damn shame, because overall, a visual style of this game is very, very cool. And while not to everyone's taste for sure, it definitely isn't to my taste in all regards, it is still high fidelity, it is still very nice, very cohesive, and it definitely has a sort of charm that you might not expect from a game like this. Overall, I don't really have a lot of issues with that, but I do have the issues with the technical implementation of their camera controls. That all said, the game also touts audio as a very important part of the gameplay experience. And here I'm gonna have to scratch my head and wonder what the hell the developers are smoking, because the audio in this game is really not that impressive at all. They mentioned having 8 tracks from 5 different artists, and honestly, I wish they've stuck with one artist that sort of did one track and did it well, because right now all the tracks are mostly mundane and annoying. I've turned down music quite a bit in my own gameplay because I didn't enjoy it at all. And during combat, or even during different other segments of the game, the audio and music of the game really didn't fit well, it didn't feel great, and switching between interaction and combat and just completing your objective never had that sort of change in scenery or change in momentum that many games manage to nail. When you go into combat, you expect a more heavier music, you expect more dramatic music, you expect more adrenaline-filled music or music that raises tension. This game does none of that. It's not great, and I really don't like it. So, bringing everything together for All Walls Must Fall. Visually, the game has a nice, appealing style, but the camera implementation is lackluster to say the least and requires a lot of work still. Audio-wise, the developers might feel this is a very cool, important part of their game, but if so, I would ask them to consider actually implementing good sounds, because right now, there really aren't any, in my opinion. And obviously that is quite subjective. On to the gameplay in terms of the duality between passive and aggressive. I really wish they would make a bigger split between these and not allow you to half-ass either and still get out with quite a few points and quite a bit of progression. That said, I would have just liked them to add more tension, higher difficulty, and more strategic thinking and more tactical depth to each level and each mission, even if that means that some missions might take longer and require rebalancing, because right now most of them are piss easy, and the two that aren't, well, replaying them over and over again does really get boring after a bit. All in all Walls Must Fall is not a unique concept in any way, but its execution is fairly unique, its ideas are very well thought out, and its implementation just needs more work. So I wouldn't recommend getting this game right now in early access, but I would definitely recommend keeping an eye on this game as it continues in early access during 2018, especially as they add more enemies, more combat depth, more combat difficulty, and hopefully more combat diversity, whether that is passive in dialogue options or active in shotguns to the face. All Walls Must Die is over on Steam for $15 US or your regional equivalent. It's come out in August of 2017 over on early access, and it's been getting updates quite regularly over the last couple of months, so I do suggest keeping an eye out for this title if this turn-based, kinda slow-paced, tactical gameplay is your sort of thing. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, press that like button down below. If you didn't like this video, well, there's a dislike button for exactly that purpose, and leave a comment. Tell us what you think about All Walls Must Fall and what are your opinions on its progress in early access. And if you want to see more content like this on the channel, just press that subscribe button down below and we will deliver. So until then, I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on GuyLogicGaming.